Manitoba. I am a member of the Springfield Flying Club Safety Committee. Thanks, Peter.
You're welcome.
Co-pilot Flight 35 captain, the guy who sends out those emails to coming events if you haven't met me in person. Co-pilot director for 8 years up until last year. I own John Blackner's Piper Cub. Have to mention John. I am not Transport Canada. I am not an instructor. I'm not here to teach you anything. I'm not the circuit police, okay? But we are going to talk about the way we want all our pilots to fly circuits in Lyncrest as well as the airspace around it. So, you guys all recognize this thing. Remember our airfield elevation? You guys all have a copy of this, right? You have like the new edition now that we don't have paper CFSs anymore. We're not flying on 20-year-old CFSs, right? Circuit altitude 1,300 feet. Only 500 feet above the ground, right? A little bit lower than most. What's the normal circuit altitude? 1,000, right. Here we fly 500 feet above the ground. All our circuits are left-hand circuits. We have 3,000 foot runway 2709, and 120 feet wide. Our other runway 2,500 feet and 200 feet wide, but we know that the eastern part of the runway is maybe not so good and we shouldn't be using it as much as you might like. Limited winter maintenance, runway width 90 feet in the wintertime. We will occasionally, if the runways are really bad, post a note down saying the runways are unusable, but that's pretty unusual too. You're pretty much on your own for runway condition. Or call Jim. Or somebody.
Clubhouse.
Yeah, Clubhouse if there's anybody here, yeah. Our frequency, 123.2, used by just about everybody here within 60 miles, right? Take off, listen to Carmen. Okay, how do you know if your radio is working in your airplane? Around here we really don't, do we? Unless somebody replies to you.
And that's for radio traffic.
Yeah, or if you've got a radio on a desktop, you can listen to yourself talk maybe. But yeah, it's pretty tough to tell, right? If you don't actually have somebody reply. Avoid flight over the reservoirs to the east, as you I'm sure you all know. Avoid flight over the houses south of runway 17. Safe altitude within 5 nautical miles, 2,200 feet. What does that tell you? Anyone know? No? 1,000. Sorry? Yeah, 1,000 feet above the highest point within 5 nautical miles of the airport. So if you're at 2,200 feet, no matter how hard you try, you can't hit anything, except maybe another airplane. Transport Canada says, unless authorized by appropriate air traffic control units, no pilot in command shall operate an aircraft at a height of less than 2,000 feet over an aerodrome, except for the purpose of landing and taking off. Well, we're going to find out. How does he do that here? From the latest version of the Aeronautical Information Manual, page 248, Transport Canada does not regulate circuit entry. Transport Canada is the regulator. What the heck do they do then? Well, less and less it seems like. But, oh, did I say that out loud? Sorry. In any case, Transport Canada recommends circuit entries, which we're going to talk about. Powered aircraft should approach the circuit from the non-active side, what we briefly call the upwind side. Okay, so the non-downwind side. Alternatively, if the pilot has ascertained there will be no conflict with other traffic entering the circuit or established within it, the pilot can also join the circuit on the downwind leg. So this part has not changed. Preferred entry, overhit the fields, join the left-hand circuit. Second choice, straight in on downwind, which happens to be my first choice, but that's not really relevant. If it's necessary for an aircraft to cross the aerodrome before joining the circuit, it is recommended to cross over to be at least 500 feet of the highest circuit altitude in use. So in other words, to fly over the airport here, you should approach the airport at 1,800 feet and descend as you go across the airfield to join downwind. Okay, that's what Transport Canada says. But they don't regulate that. Pilots are reminded, I got a kick out of this. Pilots are reminded that the use of phrases such as any traffic in the area, please advise, are not standard phraseology and should not be used. Well, who's never said that? Okay. Any traffic that is present, this is more pertinent though, any traffic that is present at the time of a report should reply without prompting. So if somebody calls in and says, I'm 5 miles out coming in, you should say, I'm in the circuit, left-hand downwind for runway 27, whatever. You should reply automatically. That's the theory. That's what Transport Canada expects. So, here is a diagram that's been in the AIM forever and ever. Okay, coming from the upwind side, or what they now call the non-active side. Minimum flight, if you're minimum overflight of the airport, 2,000 feet above airport elevation, descending to join a downwind leg at 1,000 feet, except at Lyncrest because our circuit height is 500 feet. Okay, so this is for all airports, just take off 500 feet for the downwind. Okay. Notice that you come in on the upwind or non-active side, come in, join the downwind midfield, turn base, turn final, or come in straight in downwind, turn base, turn final. When you're leaving, you stay in the circuit, and you want to be at an airfield, you want to be at circuit height before you turn downwind. That's recommended by Transport Canada. When you depart, fly beyond the circuit before you turn. Don't take off, join the circuit like you're going to stay in it, and then go bugger off. That's not what you're supposed to be doing. Okay? So fly beyond the circuit, and then turn en route. If you have to fly back over the airport, then continue your climb and be, transport says at least 500 feet. Seems a little contradictory, but surprise, it's transport. But you should be 1,000 feet above the airport if you can by the time you cross over. So, where's some points that we know around here? We've got our clover leaf. We've got the ponds here, the reservoir, the floodway and Dugald Road. We've got the baseball diamonds. You can use, when I fly cross countries, I don't plan my route to the airport. I plan my route to the point where I'm going to join the approach to the airport, right? So if I'm going to fly back to Lyncrest, and I know I'm going to land on runway 17, and because I like to fly straight in downwind, if there's no reason not to, I would come to the cloverleaf, fly down the floodway, and come back. Okay? So don't put your GPS on the airport, put it at the point where you're going to join the circuit. Okay? So this is what that diagram, this one, looks like to scale on the airport. And here's, so runway 09, come in from the south, cross over the field, fly your circuit, or if you're coming in from the east, you can come in straight in on the downwind, okay, if there's no conflict. To leave the circuit, or to leave the airport, we don't want you to do right turns, and we don't want you to fly over the ponds. So your choice is a left turnout, get away from the airport, and then turn on route. Okay, that's our practice here. Runway 27, you're going to pick a position to come in from the north, cross over the field, etc. Don't need to say all this again. Downwind just straight in from the west. If you're coming in from the east, find your route so that you wind up north of the airport. Right? Not that hard. Runway 17, coming in from the west, it's easy. Coming in from the south, it's easy. If you're coming in from the east, same thing, just fly around enough. Maybe you wind up at the baseball diamond. Okay? And then come back to the airport. Okay? Just a suggestion. Runway 35, don't fly over the ponds. Come in, pass overhead, join the circuit, or come straight in from the north, turn final, etc. Taking off, same thing. Leave the circuit area, right? We have, like you should fly out at least a mile and a half before you make any turns to go en route. Okay. This diagram is now in the AIM as of, I think, this issue. This is where transport says they don't regulate circuits. Okay. So this shows you all of the stuff that's been creeping into our habits in the last few years. And a lot of it, I think, probably comes from watching YouTube videos or American lessons or whatever. But what are we doing here? It's okay to join at 45 degrees now? According to Transport Canada, yes. Where is a 45-degree entry done?
US.
It's in the US. Why would we do that?
It can also be done in an MF airport, such
Right.
as Brandon.
Right. Well, I wasn't talking about MF.
No.
I
We're
will
talking
actually get
about
to that at
these.
some point. But who's expecting somebody to join at a 45-degree angle on downwind? Anybody? No. In my Cub, I can't see back there. If I'm on downwind and you're coming from back here, I'm not going to know you're there. Right? That's kind of, it's just not a good idea. Think back, we had a very bad midair at Steinbach South this summer. What happened? Had one person on final, another person doing a 180-degree power off turn, sort of thing you do for a commercial, and they came in belly to wing or something like that, right? Apparently, we don't know if they were talking to each other on the radio. It seems like not. Well, so what happened? One person was not where the other person expected to be, right? You didn't expect somebody coming in from the side like that, and they had a midair, okay? Likewise, our little habit of flying over and coming back, yeah, okay, you can do that, okay? Be at least 1,000 feet above the airport, come in, fly back the other way. But why do that? Why not just plan your route so that you wind up here anyway? Because this is the recommended approach. This is where we expect to see you. Okay? Same with whatever the heck this is. Okay? This is if you're 2,000 feet above airport elevation, then you come in and do that. But again, why not just put yourself here and fly overhead? Yes, sir.
I'm one that always uses this blue approach because that's how you do it if you want to see the winds. You don't know what runway is active beforehand.
What frequency is Winnipeg ATIS?
Well, but that doesn't tell you what runway is active. You know that the wind isn't the same as when Winnipeg in here.
Okay. If you're the only one in the circuit, which runway is active?
The one I choose.
Whichever one you want, right? Okay. Will Winnipeg ATIS give you an idea of what the wind direction is?
Sure. Well, anyways, to me, the blue approach is what you ought to do because that's how I was taught to do it.
Okay, but I'm gonna take a wild guess and say maybe you weren't taught here.
Yes, but it's a good way of doing it.
Okay, but we're saying there is no approved way to join a circuit. There are two recommended ways, and there's everything else. Okay, that's kind of the point I'm trying to get across. Okay, so I'm not saying you're wrong because there is no wrong way.
No, but to me, like that blue is what that recommendation actually means.
No, that's not what it means. It means this.
That's
I mean,
what
like
you're
this.
saying, but that's not what the blue thing says.
No. This green part.
You know,
This is the recommended
that's
part.
not what the text on the blue background said. Like that 500 feet off means something, you know, above circuit. That's where you have to be to see the windsock. I mean, that's not just something that's nice to do. That's something that you need to do. You need to see the wind even if you know what runway you want to do.
Okay, I'm just telling you, this is a recommended thing. Not this, not this. Okay, that's recommended.
No.
Okay?
Yeah. I think what you're talking about is the diagram here. And for Lyncrest and other non-mandatory frequency airports, coming in 500 feet above the circuit of any of the runways is what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think the blue does recommend
Well,
that as a procedure.
It's not a question of, well, it's not recommended or being green, okay? But you can do it. I'm not saying you can't do it, but people aren't looking for you there. right? That's not where we normally expect to see airplanes. And you're gonna wind up in the same spot anyway. Okay, if you want to see the airport, then, you know, like, yeah, fly over the airport. I'm not saying don't do this. I'm just saying you're doing something that's a little bit unusual.
Well, but
Okay.
you're coming in straight on the downwind. I found that unusual.
But it's recommended as long as there's no conflict. Okay, I'm just telling you, this is what transport expects. This is what we expect here. Okay, so if you come in like this, there's nothing to say you can't. Okay, so yeah, go ahead and do that. But do you not know which direction the wind is coming from when you're flying?
Could be Nordo.
It might have changed,
Yes, it might have. Yeah.
and it frequently does.
Okay. Well, I mean, if you don't have a radio to listen to Winnipeg ATIS, then yeah, you have to look for windsock. You look for smoke. You look for other things too, right? So anyway, I'm not really disagreeing with you. Okay. I'm just saying this is unusual for us. Okay. People aren't going to be looking for you here unless you're making the radio calls. Okay. Is that
Of course, I do make radio calls,
okay? Well, good. That's better than some of us then.
and usually there's no one else.
Well, yeah, that's true too, right? It's not the busiest airport in Canada, that's for sure. Anyway, I don't want to get hung up on this, but this and this are the recommended approaches.
So
Okay?
Jim, you're showing joining the circuit on the base or straight in. Is that okay? Sorry.
So, no, that's actually my very next
Wait
point.
for it, Tom.
Okay.
My very next point, which was that at mandatory frequency airports, you can join the circuit from anywhere, right? So you're talking to somebody who's providing an advisory. As long as you're talking to that advisory, then you can join the circuit from anywhere. In uncontrolled airports, well, apparently you can do it because Transport Canada does not regulate circuit entry. But again, you're doing something that people don't expect, okay? So it's better to fly overhead or join the downwind, whichever. The two recommended methods are what we'd like you to do here, okay? Not saying you can't ever do anything else. This is our recommended, our preferred approach to joining the circuit, okay? That's why we're talking about this, because we want you guys to know this is what we want. Yes, sir?
Yeah, question. Gimli, mandatory frequency, sort of, because sometimes there's nobody on the
sometimes
radio
there's
there.
advisory, yeah.
So, you know, I'm coming up like Winnipeg, and I call straight in to land. But I think I read somewhere, if nobody's on the radio, you can't really do that because it's mandatory frequency, but it isn't.
It says that in the AIM somewhere.
Yeah.
Exactly that if the station's not in operation, you have to follow uncontrolled.
Yeah.
Exactly, but it's so convenient, so I forget
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
So
Well-
in Gimli, there's just a Unicom, right?
No, there is, except when the glider is
Yeah.
on,
Yeah,
and
there's-
then it's,
So if you're talking to somebody, like if you call Gimli Unicom, and nobody answers, then you just
Yeah, then it's just an uncontrolled airport then.
Yeah.
That's
And-
gonna be happening in Steinbach, right?
Right. In other airports with mandatory frequencies, Kenora, Dauphin, Brandon, right? They have an advisory. You can get clearance to fly straight in. Okay, they won't give you a clearance. That's not the right word, but they will say there's no conflicting traffic, and you say right straight in approach. Okay. But yeah, this stuff, like I say, it's not prohibited anymore, but it's not recommended. Okay? So we'd really rather you do this or this. All right. So a few points here. Moving on to airspace now. Hope I've stirred enough controversy. The airspace that we're in right now is Class E airspace. Okay, from 700 feet up, above ground level, all the way up to 3,000. Above our heads, first controlled airspace for VFR traffic is the Winnipeg terminal, 3,000 feet. So you can fly straight up to 3,000 ASL and not be in any controlled airspace, right from this airport, right? We have a little cutout, which you can't really see here, I cut it off. But we have a cutout there, this right here, actually, that's the cutout. Okay? that allows us to go up to 2,999 feet ASL. Okay, to go into Class C airspace, we need a flight plan, right? All right, so here's our control zones, Winnipeg and St. Andrews. Goes from the surface to 2,000 feet and surface to 3,000 feet. Well, that didn't show up very well. There is a thing called the Winnipeg Control Zone Extension, which goes from 2,000 feet up to 3,000 feet. I was specifically asked to mention this by air traffic controllers in Winnipeg because we have a habit of cutting the corner of their airspace. You must stay below 2,000 feet in this area, and for that matter, this area, okay? They know you're going to Lyncrest, they just don't know who you are because you're squawking 1,200. But stay below 2,000 feet until you are clear of the control area extension.
Tell them if they're less grouchy, we'd talk to them.
The one I talked to is not very grouchy. And then the Winnipeg terminal control area is all of the rest of this space, 3,000 and above. You're in controlled airspace, 3,000 feet ASL. So that's from ForeFlight. That looks simple, right? Well, let's simplify it a little bit. From the surface to 1,300 feet, this is our airspace. Winnipeg Control Zone, St. Andrews, basically daylight hours. Southport, basically daylight hours nowadays, Monday to Friday. Air Force doesn't work on weekends, you know. We have our Winnipeg Gliding Club soaring alert area there. In daylight hours it's active. They mostly fly just on the weekends, but they do occasionally fly during the week. So you can't just assume that that airspace is not in use during the week. They have their own frequency, 123.4, which you should monitor when you get close to that because they also fly outside of that area. Okay, so you should be listening to that for them. St. Andrews practice area, of course. And down here we have a restricted area to 8,800 feet, occasional by no town. So in other words, most of the time it's not active, but once in a while it is. You want to make sure you don't fly through it. I think they're testing drones in there. Rockets? Okay, rockets. Speaking of rockets, here is the Stonewall propellant plant. Okay, up to 1,800 feet. Here is Stony Mountain Penitentiary, up to 1,300 feet. There's Pinawa. Okay, so that's the airspace you need to worry about if you are below 1,300 feet. Go above 1,300 feet to 1,800 feet. The only thing that changes, you're above Stony Mountain Penitentiary. So now you can fly over at 1,800 or 1,350 feet and drop your packages down to Stony Mountain, and that's apparently okay now. A little gap here from 1,800, sorry, to 2,000, just to illustrate that the rocket propellant plant is no longer, the restricted area stops at 1,800 feet. Okay, everything else stays the same. At 2,000 feet, no more Pinawa restricted area, but now we have this, right? That is our Winnipeg Control Zone extension, which you should not be flying through without talking to them, right? And without a flight plan. Go above 3,000 feet, all of a sudden gets quite big, right? 4,000 feet, no longer in Southport, no longer matters. 5,000 feet, all the way up to 12,000 feet, St. Andrews practice area no longer matters. But we do have practice areas at Southport, and this is not the only one that kick in at 5,000 feet to 8,000. This one is surface to 8,000. There's another one over here as well. I can't remember what it is, what its altitude is. But if you're flying in that area, be aware that there's practice areas there.
And Shiloh.
Okay. Right, I didn't extend it all the way to Shiloh, but Shiloh has a restricted area as well, right? So if you want to dodge artillery shells, fly through the Shiloh restricted area. Otherwise, good idea to stay away. Yes, sir.
Why do you have Pinawa restricted down? 'Cause that's been
Nuclear
years.
plant.
Well, that used to be.
Yeah, except it's not a nuclear plant anymore.
No, it had been.
So yeah,
It still
it's-
is.
It still is. Yeah,
Still
there's still
is.
it's still. I mean, the Y doesn't really matter that much. But it's restricted, right? Yeah. I mean, yeah, but it's not doing what it used to do. Any questions?
I have one.
Yes, sir.
Do people fly no radio out of here?
Yes.
How many is it?
Well, I would say about 50% of the time for me because my radio doesn't work with crap. Who flies Nordo here?
I do.
2 or 3? 3? So yeah, there's some. Yeah. All the more reason to maintain your circuits, right? Okay, other questions?
Tell me what happens when 2 Nardo aircraft are flying in, Larry's coming in from the north and Joe Blow coming in from the south. You don't know which way the wind is. So they're gonna go over the airport, coming like this,
Yeah.
try and find out which one is
Potentially.
in use, if any.
Well, yes,
What altitude are you gonna be coming in at?
you are supposed to be looking out the window,
Okay.
right? So there's that.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've all had some pretty close near misses, right? I mean, we can get close ones once in a while. So far, I haven't hit anybody, fingers crossed, right? But yeah, like that's the way it's always been. When you come into a high traffic area, well, if you can't talk to anybody because you're Nordo, then you just have to be really watching. What else can you do?
What I do is come in myself, I come in at 1,800 feet, no matter where I'm coming from, so I would be above the airport
Yeah.
elevation, so I can assess. Look at the windsock and I know where to come in.
Yeah.
He's coming in at 1,300 from the north, at least I have a bit of a buffer.
Yeah.
I know I'm supposed to look out for him, but maybe I can't see him.
Well, and you are supposed to come in at a higher altitude and descend as you approach the downwind, right? You are supposed to have that higher view as you come up to the airport.
And if you have lights, turn them on, sure. I know some
Yeah.
people don't.
In theory, that's where we're going back to the earlier conversation of 1,000 feet over, check the windsock. Now you decide the dead side of whichever runway you're using, or, you could have Harold out there doing crosswind landings, so.
I have one question. So my understanding is that when I'm coming in, say to the north side, to cross midfield to join circuit 57, okay? I want to be at circuit altitude before I'm crossing over. But you're saying that I want to be higher and descending as I'm coming down.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
which one? Because to me, like
No,
now
that's
we've
not
got
right. You want to
different
cross over the
altitudes coming
airport at
into
certain
the
altitudes.
You want to be coming to circuit altitude as you are joining downwind. So yeah, I mean, you're not 1,000 feet when you cross overhead. Like you're not 1,000 feet above circuit altitude, but you're descending to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to be above all the circuits when you do this crossing. So,
Like up here,
Can I
maybe.
go back to this?
Certainly.
yeah, you don't know where people are. I wrecked it. You don't know what the Nordo guy is doing. So if you come in 500 feet above all the circuits, you're not going to be in conflict with anybody.
Okay.
They could be landing downwind is what Peter is trying to say, and they could be on the other side of the runway, you just
Yeah.
don't know it.
And you don't know, like the other gentleman said, what the wind is and what runway you're going to use. So if you come in 500 feet above and then make a descent to join the downwind of your chosen runway, which you broadcast, or you hear from someone else that they're using and join their circuit, then you're going to be deconflicting with people. But the important thing is to be 500 feet above where all of the downwinds, base legs, crosswinds are.
You're 500 feet here and descending, so that you're still above circuit altitude until you're joining. But if you're going to fly overhead the field to see the windsock, for example, then you should be 1,000 feet above, fly over, do your little recce, and then leave the airport area and come back to the runway you've chosen. Really, that would be better.
And be extra vigilant of any traffic that's basically at circuit altitude when you're descending, because that's where the conflicts are going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if you look at all of these, diagrams, they all have potential conflicts if people are using more than one runway, right? So if you're coming in to land on runway 17 or 35, you're potentially in conflict with aircraft in the circuit over here. So that's why you have to be descending as you're passing overhead, because you want to be above circuit height as you cross the potential circuit for the other runway.
I disagree. I don't think you're not supposed to descend overhead. You're supposed to cross the field at circuit altitude.
So that's where the conflict is. One coming in from the south, one coming from the north, Nordo. Those are the guys you're looking for, not the people you're talking to. Those are the ones that are gonna be head on, trying to find out which one.
You don't want somebody to come over and then descend onto the downwind.
Well, I'm not talking about doing like a Stuka dive or something here to
No.
come down. It's just a gentle descent, right?
cross over the field at circuit altitude.
You need to be above the downwinds though.
What's that?
You need to be above the downwinds or you could be conflicting with
When you're coming
something.
over, you want to be 500 feet above circuit, you're taking a look at things.
Yeah,
Descend on the upwind side and then cross over
Correct.
at circuit altitude, doing it down.
yeah, correct.
Should be at is, say you're both using the 2.7. One's coming from the north. They should be at circuit altitude where they cross. If one's coming from the south, they're going to cross over and turn, then they're at 500 feet above.
Correct.
They're gonna go north of the north of the airport, they're
Yep.
gonna descend to 500 and come in at 1300 and cross. Because when you're crossing from the upwind side into the downwind, you're already kind of in the circuit, you
Yeah.
should be in circuit altitude. You shouldn't be descending as, right here, as you're overhead, or just as you're coming into overhead descending, you should already be at 1300. I'm gonna say a mile more than outside of the circuit. Outside of the circuit.
But Eric, here, listen, for the rest of you as well. When you're the 1,000 feet, okay, and you're coming in this way, if you're the 1,000 feet, what else, or 500 feet, right, for our circuit height, what else is at 500 feet, right? You're flying right through the circuit for the other runway.
Not if I'm coming into 2.7, I'm crossing overhead to come into 2.7. This is the example I gave.
Okay.
The example I gave is someone coming in from the north, they're gonna be at 1300 because someone coming in from the south intending to cross over, look at the soft, and turn, they should be 500 feet above them.
And descend on the upwind side, cross over.
Okay, and descend and then come back south and do it.
But again, if you are at circuit altitude here, and you cross over the field at circuit altitude, you are crossing the circuit for 2.7 at circuit altitude. That's why I'm saying you should be a little bit.
I'm not crossing the circuit. The circuit is on the south side.
The circuit's right here.
If I'm approaching from the north,
Yeah.
the circuit is
Yes, on the south. Yes, correct.
base, final landing, and back to the south.
Right.
On the upwind side, that's not part of the circuit,
Okay.
so we don't make right hand.
The reason
But-
you do
but
that is
what
you
if-
want to see you want to see the other aircraft at the same altitude, that's the problem
Okay.
when you do it.
But this. Okay. So, what I'm saying is, when you approach, okay, you're gonna land on, the wind is calm. You're gonna land on runway 27. Okay, so you come in overhead, you join the circuit at circuit altitude. That's your conflict right there. You're passing right through the downwind.
If there's potential to use either runway, there's no wind there. There's no wind, you can land either runway. So you're saying you're crossing the circuit for
Yeah, so that's where you have to have your eyes.
Yeah, that's where you have to have your eyes on.
Or be a couple of 100 feet above and descending.
No, that's not the proper way to do it. When we cross over, but
That's,
that's.
anyway, all right.
This is changing gears when I took my private
Otherwise, Christ, I just showed you why it was dangerous to do that.
circuit altitude. When I took my
All right. I have a feeling that we're not going to settle this. So, I'm going to.
A quick, if I may, for 30 seconds, and it's always in the interpretation. It's like statistics. You can make statistics say anything you want, but in the traffic circuit procedures, uncontrolled airports, if necessary for an aircraft to cross the airport before joining the circuit. Now you get into the technicality of where am I joining the circuit. It is recommended that the aircraft crossover be accomplished at least 500 feet above the circuit altitude. That's the aim.
To me, that is the one that's coming from the south.
Yeah, but you're not in, but even coming back to join the circuit, you're not in the circuit yet. You're joining the circuit. So you've got to get from overhead the airport to circuit altitude. I don't necessarily agree with it, don't get me wrong, but I'm just the letter of the law.
So, if I was coming in from the south Nordo, and I don't know, I'm not talking to anybody, I don't see any traffic, come over 500 feet above the circuit, pass over the airport, 27 is actually active. So what I would do, okay, I see airplanes now, or the windsock is curving 27, I would come over, have to turn around at 1,800 feet so I can come in, cross, and then join that, come down to 1,300 feet, then turn
Look,
down.
it pains me the fact that I have to agree with Jim.
Or
But-
you descend
but-
on the upwind side and cross over.
Yes,
but-
yes, but I'm initially, because I don't know, I'm crossing, I have to see over.
Crossing the circuit.
Coming over 1,800 feet, I'm turning it, coming down.
Well, not really. You've already, when you start your descent,
Well, yeah, see, I really like almost
can I quote from the big chart?
And it's a
Room.
so I try to do
Okay.
order like that, yeah.
Here we have the green, which is Lyncrest. And a little blurb down here says, for the dotted lines, make all descents to the circuit on the upwind side, then cross the aerodrome at midfield at 1,000 above airport elevation. Well, that's 500 here, okay? Or at the published circuit altitude, which is our 500 feet. So that's what you were saying. You come over, see what the windsock says, declare your circuit. Now you've established what the circuit is. You can go out, descend on the non-active side, upwind side, and join the circuit, crossing the field at circuit altitude. Okay?
Okay.
Not quite okay.
That takes care of the conflict of people coming into the circuit, an active circuit that both don't know.
Yeah.
They avoid this.
Yeah.
They'll come in, then they're only really looking at maybe one airplane, not a whole bunch of them. Then they go over, and then they go send down, they come in.
You're never going to get rid of that completely. You could still have two people coming in opposite directions. That's the same thing.
That's where you keep track.
All right. Well,
Okay.
I love that we have resolved all these problems.
We do.
On Monday, February 23rd, Local Flight 35 will host its annual rust remover, which will also be good for pilot currency if you would like more of this. Okay. So come on out. We'll send it out by email when the time comes. And if you'd like to be on my mailing list, get notified of aviation events coming up. There's the email. Just send an email to that address, and I will put you on my mailing list. Okay. Thank you very much.
This diagram is also here, okay?